Chat Nook Choo Choo. Up on the Chat Nook Choo. On the Chat Nook Choo Choo. Up on the Chat. Up on the Chat Nook Choo Choo. Up on the Chat Nook. Up on the Chat Nook Choo Choo. Up on the Chat Nook Choo. Up on the Chat Nook Choo Choo. Up on the Chat.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. This is Christine at the Chat Nook, and we've got a lot to talk about today. But first, how's everybody? I hope you're doing well. Listen, like and subscribe. I've got you out there. I need you to like and subscribe my channel and spread the word. Tell people that I'm here and doing the Chat Nook. And today I've got a lot to talk about. And I'm going to do two disclaimers before we start. The first disclaimer is I am in no way, shape, or form like a religious fanatic. I can tell you that. Anybody that knows me knows this. I believe more in faith than religion. And so that's going to be, I'm going to start my show with something in that area. That's why I wanted to say, I don't want to turn anybody off with that, but it just, what I'm going to say is some kind of religious thing that's going to lead into what I want to talk about today. Okay. Disclaimer one. Disclaimer two is when I do get into the actual story today, and it's about a topic in the news today. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert on what I'm going to be talking about. What I will say is that it's just what I'm going to give you is my opinion. I'm also going to give you information that I have. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Information that I have accumulated because I'm so interested in this story. And I think the whole country should be interested in this story. And so I want to make sure you know that I'm not a professional. I'm not a sleuth. I don't know about this stuff. I just know that I've been very interested in the story since it started. And I'll tell you the reasons why. And so I've accumulated a lot of information. I have my favorite, journalists that I listen to, people that are very reputable in the area. And so I wanted to just say, whatever I say to you, there are going to be actual facts in what's happening, but a lot of it's going to be my personal opinion. So that's my disclaimer. I'm not offering you any expertise here. I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm just going to talk about what I do know and what I feel. And I want you guys to also be, chiming in, because you can, as we're talking, you can tell me what you're thinking, and we're hoping you do that. I have Chris on the side over here, and he's going to be pulling up your comments and stuff, and I'll get to see him also. Let me know you're out there. Say hi, and again, like and subscribe, please, please, please. Hey, listen, this is only my third podcast, and we've had thousands of people already watching what I'm doing. So, wow, that's magnificent. All right, let's get into it. All right, so anybody that's over the age of 10 has heard the story that's been on the news. Every channel, this has gone worldwide. So everybody knows Savannah Guthrie. Savannah Guthrie is a journalist, and she is the host of the Today Show. And just a very famous lady, been in the business for many, many, many years. And let me backtrack before I get into that whole story. I want to say that in the book of Genesis, okay, and it's Genesis 1:26 through 27. God created man in his image. This is again, my disclaimer thing, okay? I'm not going to get super religious on you, but I am going to tell you why this leads into what we're going to talk about today. Now, created man in his image doesn't mean that it's a physical resemblance, okay, or anything like that. What this means is it refers to God's character, his soul, you know, what do I have here? A capacity for reasoning and morality and things like that. This is what this means, okay? So humans were created in the image of God, okay? But in God's creation of man, woman, man, I don't think he realized. I mean, here's the great Almighty, the all-knowing God. Okay, He creates man in His image, but He gives us free will, and it is that free will that leads people to do evil, heinous, unbelievably crazy things to other human beings. Now we can see that in so many things on the news. You can't watch the news anymore and not know about, school shootings and rapes and murders and, all of this wars, all of this stuff is like insanity. And to me, it's because people choose to be evil. I mean, there's no other way to say that. People just choose to be evil. So now let's jump to a very current, like literally going on right now, okay? The story of Nancy Guthrie. Now, again, I'm always a connect the dots person. So I'm saying man's created in the image of God. And now we go to this story about Nancy Guthrie. And why is this story about Nancy Guthrie so hitting it home for me? Well, it's because at the same time that all of this stuff with Nancy Guthrie is going on, my mom has been very ill and in the hospital. And I'm talking same time frame as the Guthries and our family. And I can't even imagine, because I know the stress that this has brought my family with my mom being ill, what the Guthries are feeling. So let's go over it. So through the night of January 31st into February 1st, Nancy Guthrie, who is an 84, everybody hear this? 84-year-old woman, lives alone in the Catalina mountain area, which is part of Tucson, Arizona, which, by the way, we lived not in Tucson, we lived in Arizona for 44 years. We lived there. We moved to Missouri around 2019. So we know the Catalina, that area, and there's actually a personal point to all this too, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So Nancy Guthrie, earlier that evening, is at her daughter Annie's house. Annie lives 4 miles away from Nancy. Nancy goes to dinner there, gets home, probably gets ready for bed. She's 84, elderly, goes to bed. And at some time through the night, some genius, gets into her house, abducts her, and that's Nancy's story. They still don't know where she is, who she's with. Is she okay? Is she alive? Is she passed? We don't know. Nobody knows. 15 days out, nobody knows where Nancy is. Can you imagine? Hey, Tim, how are you? I see you out there. Can you imagine what that family is going through? Because I can't. Okay, I tell you, because we have a personal thing going on in our own family. And I know that the stress and the anguish that brings. So I can't even imagine that level of horror. Okay. So now the Pima County, which is the county in Tucson, Sheriff Chris Nanos has to take on this mystery case in a short period of time. There were agencies. Hello, Alicia. Hello, Barbara. I see you guys out there. Thanks for watching. Hey, like and subscribe and spread the word and tell people I'm on. You want to hear about this story, and I want your opinion. I want everybody's opinion on this because this is something that really, truly affects us all. So now we've got agencies all over Arizona. Government, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Trump gives the okay to do whatever they need to do to solve this case. So you've got thousands of people, literally working on the Nancy Guthrie case. 15 days out, they still have no idea where she is, who she's with, how she's been treated. But here's the problem, well, among the thousand of other things. She is not well. She was on a pacemaker. She has difficulty walking. So now you've got an elderly, kind of disabled woman, and she's out there somewhere. Well, we hope that she's still alive and maybe somebody, for whatever their reasons are for doing this incredibly evil, horrific thing, at least they're taking care of her. Come on. I mean, it just seems, how heinous can you be to just do this in the first place? Okay, so how this hits home with me is that, again, my mom has been very ill. And literally about the same time that Nancy was abducted, my mom becomes very ill. She falls twice in one day. We get the ambulance, take her to the hospital, lots of testing. In about 4:30, 5 o'clock that morning, she gets to come home. Still not doing well, but kind of sort of recovering. Thursday, that was Monday. Thursday, she is just having horrific medical problems and hemorrhaging from somewhere. And so we call the ambulance. Mom goes back to the hospital. Mom is still in the hospital. Okay. And so it has been a tremendous stress for our family. And really and truly, we've been really scared about the outcome. And we're still very nervous. And I'm thinking, at the stress level that we're all under, I know what this feels like and how it just tears you apart to see this. What are those three? There are three. Nancy has three children. Savannah Guthrie, again, the host of the Today Show. And Savannah, by the way, was supposed to host the Winter Olympics and wasn't able to go, obviously, because it was right about the time she would have had to be flying over to Italy to be a journalist, commentator person for the Olympics. And she, couldn't go. So you've got this story going on every day. Every journalist is hitting this story, telling the story. The problem is, guys, there's nothing to tell. They have facts. They do have facts. They know, that when Nancy was taken out of the house, that she was bleeding somewhere, because the blood that they saw in front of her front door, they, tested, and it was her blood. They know that. Now, it wasn't like profuse bleeding, but she was bleeding from somewhere. They know that. They have facts. Now they have, all of a sudden, what happened is that she has these Nest cams at her house, which she didn't have the subscription to keep them, rolling all the time. So what they didn't know at the time was that the company can still take those cameras and get images even though the cameras aren't rolling. It's amazing what technology can do today. So they send the Nest cams off to the company, and they find out that, what do you know? We've got a person. They're actually able, you've probably seen it all over the news. If you've got a phone, if you've got a computer, you've seen it. This image of a guy in like a balaclava mask. He's got a backpack. I mean, they've got the guy. They know the guy. They don't know the guy. I take that back. They don't know the guy. They just know that of the guy. They can see now. They know that he's like 5'10" ish, and kind of his weight. They're kind of figuring these details out. Once they post the pictures, now they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of so-called leads or people that say, hey, I think I know who that is. But you know what that does? It means that they have to listen to every one of those. And it means that now they have to spend time going through every one of those and saying, okay, now we got to figure, is it this person? Is it this person? And they've got to start doing this, using their resources for, to find who's out there. Well, one of the recent, I think it was just maybe 2 days ago, they find somehow, that's a lot of this is hush hush. They're not letting all the information out. I get it. I know that's how the police departments have to work. They have to keep some things concealed because, if you let too much out, that it's all that stuff. They have to keep things, quiet. So really, even the big journalist people, they don't know. They don't know. So they find that this anyway. Okay, so let me skip. So they find the image of this guy. Okay, they're still looking into him. Okay, but in the meantime, they think that, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is him. So somehow that image gets linked to a house in what's it called, Rio Rico, Arizona, which is right near the Mexican border. Okay, so the feds and the police, they go down to Rio Rico. They break in to this family's house. They take the guy out. They put him in handcuffs. You've seen him on Facebook too, saying they never even said anything why they were doing that. Bring him to wherever, the jail or whatever. Let him go. So he had an alibi. So he's off the hook and he goes home. Then I think the day before yesterday, they have another lead and they wind up going to a house. Hope that everyone, let me read this real quick. Yes, okay, that's it. So they go to a house in Tucson, which Catalina Hills and Tucson's kind of, all together. And the house, this is that personal connection I was telling you about. The house is on Orange Grove Road. Now, Orange Grove Road is not a big road in that area. And I have an uncle that has lived on Orange Grove Road for probably 40 years. It's a very nice neighborhood. And for some reason, they get this lead that takes them to Orange Grove Road in Tucson. They, from what I hear from the people I listen to, the reputable journalists, pull this guy out of his house. I think it was a guy and his mom in this house. They pull him out. They let him go. So in 15 days, there are no answers. No answers. They have leads. They have maybe a few suspects. They don't know who this is. Now, my question is, could these people or this person, whoever, be smarter than thousands of police, FBI, all these agencies? No. But whatever this person was able to do is, in his own right, remarkable, because he has everybody, or they have everybody stumped. Now, I will tell you, when the pictures came out of the person in the mask, I said, that's a woman. I still, in the back of my mind, I still think it's a woman, but they're sure it's a man. Because if you pull up that picture, and it's still all over Facebook, I mean, you guys can go look and see, pull that face up. I'm telling you, that person looks like they've got eyeliner on. I may be crazy, and I don't know why you'd put eyeliner on to commit a crime. But I'm saying, sometimes you are going to commit a crime and you're not really planning everything. You got to make mistakes. You got to do things that are stupid. And so I'm thinking, is it possible that this was a woman? And if you look, even the body type at certain angles, it looks like a woman. I don't know. I'm just saying that's one of my unsleuthed, if I can say that right, theories. Okay, I'm just playing cop here myself. I don't know what the story is, and I can tell you, obviously, I'm not the only one who can't figure this case out, because, I mean, this is, the government is in on this, people. Everybody's in on this. This is worldwide news. Why this should affect every single one of us is because if they could go in and take an 84-year-old woman and cause this kind of trauma, horror, all this stuff, every one of us could be in this situation. Now, I don't know the numbers, and I should have done some number looking up. Maybe while you guys are out there, you can actually answer this for me. I don't know what the kidnapping rate is in the United States of America. I know in the world, in like in the third world countries and stuff, it's almost like that's just part of life. It's horrible. But in the United States of America, I would love to know, what is the abduction number in the United States of America? I also would like to know, and I'll do my own research, guys. I'm going to write that down, because I'm going to write that down. What is abduction? But if you guys are out there and you can quickly do an AI kind of a thing, which we'll talk about AI here in a minute too, in US. Okay. Now, what's the number of abductions in the United States of America? And how many do they solve? How many do they bring home? We all know the Elizabeth Smart. There are those stories that come to I mean, if you can ever say a happy ending, I don't know. If I were abducted, I don't know how you could ever feel right again, or trust again, and not live in a fear. You know what I mean? But there are children. There are children that are abducted all the time. What is the lifelong, if they live, if they're rescued, what in the world is the lifelong effect of something like this? And I have a feeling, without looking it up, that the abduction numbers are outrageous, which means it could affect every single one of us. I will tell you this, that I live in an adult community and never feared being in this house by myself. Never. And a lot of times, hubby's working late, like into the morning, and I'm here. And I never was afraid to be here until this case, because it has affected me so much that I'm thinking nobody is safe. So now I'm deadbolting, I'm doing all this stuff because I'm like, if they can go in and take an 84-year-old lady who's got a lot of problems, okay, a lot of problems, and take her and have her all this time, which there's a huge part of all of us that says, my God, we hope Nancy's still alive, and we hope that in some crazy way they've taken care of her, fed her. She needed medicine. If she's passed, then God rest her soul, because that was a horrible way to go. But we're not safe. And that goes back to what I started with, that in the image of God, He tried to create us in His image. Well, I'm sorry, people, but that's not how the world turned out. Now, in my little circle of family and friends, I thank God for not giving us that evil. Okay. I've got very wonderful people in my life, people who wouldn't think of hurting someone else. They don't go there. I mean, we don't think that way. We're not crazy people that are trying to hurt people. But that's not the case. That is not the case of so many people in this world. By the way, if you see me move a lot, it's because of my Meniere's disease, because it makes me very unstable and I have to keep shifting. And I'm going to throw that in there because it's one of my personal medical problems. So, and I know I've watched my videos and I see that I move a lot, but it's not something I can help. So there you go. Just wanted to put that out there. Yes.
So looked
Yes.
up a little information.
Yes.
Going back, there are several different sources and some conflicting numbers, but in 2022,
Okay.
there were approximately 53,000 kidnappings reported.
53,000
53,000 in the United States.
kidnappings in the U.S.
And they say about 2/3 of those are non-family related stranger abductions.
Really? Okay. Did everybody hear that? Okay. So what Chris just said was in 2022, which I'm sure there's a more recent number, 53,000. I didn't say 53 and I didn't say 5,300. I said 53,000 kidnappings happened in the United States, just in the United States, 53,000. And 2/3 are what? Non-family. But now, of those 53,000, does it tell you how many people were rescued?
No, I didn't get a chance to look that far into
because that I would be curious to know how many. There's a happily ever after kind of a thing, which honestly, like I said, I don't think that you could be kidnapped and go through that kind of trauma and live happily ever after. It would, I'm sure, affect you for the rest of your ever loving life. Okay, so let's talk about the Guthrie kids. Now, I watch a lot of crime documentaries. As a matter of fact, I've watched a couple recently that I'm going to tell you about. People really are evil. They're just insane. My 2 documentaries I'll tell you about. Okay. So because I watch all of these crime documentary things, sometimes just there's several episodes, sometimes just a straight documentary, but I love that because it just intrigues me, like, how can people be so evil? How in the world do their minds think like this? I don't understand, but it intrigues me. So when I first heard the story 15 days ago, the first thing out of my mouth, and I'm going to be honest, it's one of the family members. Because that's honestly, when they talk about abductions, they usually say you start on the inner circle. The inner circle is your family or whoever you're living with at that time. That's your inner circle. And that's where every investigation in an abduction starts. And I said, it's going to be one of the kids or a grandkid or not knowing anything about the case. It's just where my head went because a lot of what I watch, that's what happens. Now, with the investigation, when all the inner circle is cleared, then they start working, expanding that circle. Okay. And then they go out and they start finding things. And so I've always had this thing in the back of my head that had to have been somebody in the family. But as far as I know, again, I'm not an expert, just what I'm hearing, they were ruled out. They were ruled out. There was a time when there was a lot of suspicion going on at, her name is Annie Guthrie, it's Savannah's sister. There was, they had police tape around and cars were taken for, they were towed away and all that stuff. And so everybody, but I think all of that there's nothing else said about it. I think if it were them, this case would have been solved or almost solved, or they wouldn't still be figuring out all these other thousands of things coming in and trying to resolve. I don't think they'd be using all those resources if they had who they needed. Who would do that? Who would do that? So anyway, that was my suspicion, but now that's not who anybody thinks it is. I all I know is this. Whoever did this, did they have a beef against Savannah for some reason, or did they just know she's famous and she's got money because they were ransom notes? There's another thing. I think it was the first, I could be wrong, but I think the first ransom note came in. And of course, they followed that. And it was a hoax. And they got the guy, and he's in California. And I say, you take that SOP and you prosecute to the full extent of the law. Because you know how many resources and money and time and energy they had to use on finding this guy because they thought he was the guy who had done all this, and it was a fake. It was a hoax. And that guy needs to be sent up the river for good. How dare he and his family and whoever was in on it? How in the world can you do that? The other thing that's happening right now with this story, it's just, gosh, it's so horrible. All this AI stuff. Now, mind you, I love AI. I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating what AI can do. I even had a doctor tell me recently, if you really want to look up something medical, and I'm passing this along because it made a lot of sense and it really is remarkable. The doctor said, do an AI research on a medical thing because it's unbiased. There's nobody sponsoring. There's no medication company. There's no pharmaceutical, nobody's sponsoring that. So you're getting a genuine, non-biased answer. So I love AI for that. Okay. But what I don't love AI for is that people use it for things like this. Do you know how many pictures, stories, whatever that they've gotten from people using AI? There was a picture recently they said there was more pictures that came from the Nest cams at Nancy's house. And it showed the initial guy that they have, walking an elderly woman out saying that it was Nancy. No, it was AI. Do you know what this is putting that family through? They're wanting leads. They want their mother. They want to make sure their mother's okay, and they can't. They can't because there's so much interference in this case. So much interference that you guys out there that are messing around are causing the police and everybody involved to have to stop this part of the investigation to go test that part. And it's got to stop. We've got to get Nancy home in whatever that means. We've got to get this family to have its resolve in whatever way that means also. Our hearts go out to the Guthrie family because this has got to be the most, well, without question, the most horrific thing they've ever gone through. And I think that as human beings, we need to help in whatever way we can and not hinder the investigation. You just stop. It's disgusting. It's really disgusting. The news media can't even report anything new anymore because there's nothing new. There's nothing new. They just don't know where poor Nancy went. They don't know what happened to her. I mean, what a horrific, I can't, it touches me because, like I said, this whole time frame of that family going through that, we're going through something pretty awful too with my mom. But we still have my mom and we can see her every day. And I can't imagine what they're going through. What were you going to say?
I mentioned on the Facebook feed, I just talked about following the case.
Yeah.
Alicia said, with regards to the kidnappings and stuff, she says in Mexico, it's almost an everyday situation where they're
right.
I just commented that's certainly a frightening thing to
it's scary
think about.
Yeah. You know, you have people like Elizabeth Smart, you know, she was kidnapped and the perpetrators had her just a few miles from her home. And they couldn't find her. So I mean, you know, it's hard to trace when the kidnappers maybe are really good at it and they know what to do and what not to do, and it makes it hard to find. But she and her dad, as far as I know, I've seen them saying stuff. So, I mean, they're in on it. Everybody. I don't care. Like I said, if you're 10 and under, you may not know about the Nancy Guthrie case, but even today, I watch Ashley Banfield. She's one of my go-tos for information. She's been in the business almost 40 years and she's very, very reputable, and in my opinion. And she had a retired FBI agent on, a lady who was very knowledgeable. And even the FBI agent said today, this is like an unprecedented case. I mean, she said it's so crazy. It's so crazy. And she said, and there are so many agencies in on this from the get-go, and they still can't find Nancy. So, you know, out there as human beings, we need to pray for this family. We need to pray, even if you're not a praying person, you need to hope for an outcome, whatever it is, but an outcome of some kind of peace for the Guthrie family. They have been tortured for 15 days. And it's disgusting. And my heart goes out to them. The stress. I mean, you've seen Savannah. This has absolutely taken such a toll on her and the other two that I think even if they found Nancy okay and brought her home, I don't think they'll ever be the same. I really don't think they'll ever be the same. The stress of this whole thing has been so traumatic that they're going to have lifetime PTSD and they're never going to be the same. And what a shame. Why would you target this 84-year-old woman? If you have a beef against Savannah, or you just know that a kind of a, you know, well-to-do lady lives in this house, like, go get a job, man. What you know what I'm saying? It just boggles my mind. Recently, I watched two documentaries. And again, it goes back to evil people and people full of hate. One of the documentaries was about in 1973 in New Orleans, Louisiana. There was a bar. It wasn't even a bar. It was just like a social club. Okay. And it was for gay people. Now in 73, I mean, let's face it, guys, to this day, there are still ignorant people that don't accept who you are. Well, let's just face it. In 73, I mean, we were kind of more of we got through the 60s, and the 60s was a very revolutionary decade, and they made a lot of strides, you know what I mean, for the future. And strides for the future, and they changed a lot of things, and even Woodstock was all these people that were brought together for a cause and whatever. But the 60s made a huge impact on the planet and how people thought and how people accepted. That was a big turning point in American history. Now you come to 1973, and in New Orleans, Louisiana, a man bought this. It was I think it was a 3-story building, and he was a gay man, and he decided that there needed to be a social club for gay people. So he buys the place for very little money, and he makes this nice little. It was on the second level because there was a business on the bottom, I believe. Long story short, a guy who was kind of like, I'm gay, but I don't want anybody to know. He went to this social club a couple of times. I think he was kind of rejected by someone, something really stupid and insignificant. He sets the bottom of the building on fire. And there were 40-something people up in the social club that day, and like 26 of them died. And evil. And he said, "Well, I didn't mean to kill anybody." Oh, you wanted to just scare them on the second floor? You set every place that they could come down with a fire. Really? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I talk about this stuff, and it makes my blood boil, and it just makes me angry. The other documentary, for the life of me, I can't remember right now, but it was another one of these where I don't know. I'll think about it. But anyway, there was another documentary recently with the same kind of a human element to it that just, I remember sitting there thinking, I didn't know people can be this insane. So all of that, I want you to keep in mind today what the family is going through, the Guthrie family is going through, and let's just pray and just hope that there's some kind of outcome soon. There are thousands of people working on this every day, 24/7. They're not giving up. They're trying to resolve this for the family so that they can live their life as best they can after this. And so that's what all of us here are hoping happens to the Guthrie family. Around 2014, I started to write a book. Now, I've written cookbooks, and I did write another book. I'm always inspired by specific people and things. The first book I wrote is just a short story. It's called Kisses in the Snow. And it was inspired by a little boy who my sister adopted several children. And 4 of these children were from the same family. In a nutshell, the mother was into drugs and had 4 children by the time she was 19. And my sister adopted the 4 children. And the older boy just made an impact on me. The others were really little. They were babies. They were all like little stair steps. And it was the older brother that kind of made an impact on me. And I wrote a book, and it's called Kisses in the Snow. And if you want to know what it's about, you're just going to have to get my book. but it's a story that inspired me to his story. He kind of represented all the kids in this system. It inspired me to write a book, and I did. Then years later, I started to just talk about humanity and the failures of human beings. And so I started to write the next book. And this book, I'm hoping to get published very soon. It's ready to go to the presses, because what's happened is I wrote the book, and then I would go back and I'd change this and I'd add this and I'd change this. And for somebody who writes, the worst thing you could do is go back and check your work, because you're going to change everything over and over and over again. So I'm at a point where I don't even like to look at my book anymore, because I know I'm going to go in there and I'm going to change something. I don't want to do that. The point of this is, this book is all about human behavior and what we are capable of and what we shouldn't be capable of, what is not okay. And it's for me, it's like, this book is kind of my life's work. This book, when it comes out, I want everybody to get a copy of my book, and I am advertising it right now only because it's talking about what I'm talking about is humanity, and where the heck, when did we lose the battle of humanity? It's very sad. It's very sad. When did we stop listening to God's plan to create man in his image? Yes, you were going to say something.
Well, I just go back to your talking earlier about the documentary that you watched and the fire in the building. And Alicia just commented, and she said, ignorance and fear
feeds hate. Feeds hate. That's true. Absolutely true. If you fear something, you're going to hate it. And that's why I even tell my grandkids, because I got lots of them, lots of beautiful grandkids. I tell them, because some of them have problems in school and they have some bullying. And I say, the only reason somebody bullies you is because they don't feel good about themselves. They fear you. And I know to a child that makes no sense. But my older grandkids, they agree that is the cause. If you personally fear something, you've got to do something. Hello, Travis. Thank you for coming on today to the Chat Nook. If you've missed any of this, just go on Facebook. You're going to go to the Nook at Hollister. That's the restaurant we had. We're still under that same name. And then on YouTube, it's the Chat Nook. So you can join us either place, and like and subscribe, people. Please like and subscribe. Like I said, we've already had thousands of viewers in just the first 2 podcasts we did. This is number 3. We missed last week because of Mom being in the hospital, and she's still there. But I'm saying that look, am I a perfect human being? No. Are you a perfect human being? No, there's no such thing. But I'm not trying to harm anybody. I'm not trying to do anything that, maybe wouldn't get me into heaven, because it's one thing, like I said, I'm a faithful person. I'm not religious. I'm a faithful person. And my goal is to someday go to heaven. And I think that you have to earn your way to heaven. And I think that most of this world anymore, they ain't going to heaven. I used to argue with my dad a lot about that, because he say, well, God's an all-forgiving God and everybody goes to heaven. And I said, that's horrible. That is horrible. I don't want to think that. I don't want to think that I spent my life trying to be a good person and they've done whatever they've done and we're going to meet there. That's baloney. And I loved my dad to death. He passed away in 2012. I loved him like I can't even express to you. But my dad was a very good man, and he always had these great ideas. That one I disagreed with. I said, no, I don't want to think that I'm going to the same place as a rapist, a murderer, an abductor, somebody who starts wars. I don't want to go to that place. I don't know about you guys, but I can't imagine, cannot imagine that we're all going to wind up there. It's just, it's that's a disturbing thought to me. So, you guys, I ask that you do live in what God planned in his image. And we don't have to be perfect, but we got to be more humanized. We've got to be more aware of people, and we have to be more loving. Recently, I heard love is stronger than hate. Love is stronger than hate. And I believe that. The problem is there are still too many people that hate, whether it's a religious thing, whether it's a color thing, which things like that make me crazy. But love is stronger than hate. And that's what we all need to be living towards. Okay. Let's all put out the vibes, the blessings for the Guthrie family. Let's get Nancy home and whatever that means, and help bring some peace on this earth. We need peace on earth. And I think it's really crucial now that everybody just appreciate who you know, who you love, take care of those people, take care of the people around you, do good things on the planet. And if you know somebody that's not doing good things on the planet, either stay away, turn them in. I don't care. You don't need to be with those people. Okay. So that's my spiel for today, guys. I want to thank you for watching, supporting me. Like and subscribe, please. We're going to be back here on Sundays at 2 o'clock Central Time. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing out there to support me already, because it's been really, really awesome. And let me see if I wanted to say anything else. Oh yeah, remind you that I still have a cooking channel. It's called My Cooking Nook. It's on YouTube. I've got 80 episodes, all kinds of food. It's called Fed Up. It's My Cooking Nook's Fed Up, fast, easy, and delicious. Fed Up. Okay. Great recipes, easy recipes, delicious recipes. You can go support those episodes also. Anything else we want to say today?
Well, your crafting channel,
My crafting channel. You know, I've got my hands in all these little things because that's what I do. And you guys, I don't know if you know or not, but I've been very ill for the last year. And so I've done a lot of things that keep me focused mentally. We talked about that on the last podcast. And so I crochet a lot, and I do diamond art, and there are things that I do to, especially through this last year, to keep me sane. And so I have a little channel. I've only got 2 little episodes. I'm about to make a third one on hello, Gail. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate that. And Connie, thank you for listening. I appreciate that. So it's called the Homespun Nook, and it's on YouTube. And it's just 2 episodes of me making a really easy crochet pot holder. I'm going to be making a third one here. And it's just stuff that I do to keep my sanity, to keep me focused, to keep me not thinking about all the things that I've gone through. I mean, through this year, I have had, I don't know how many trips to the ER, to neurologists and to neurosurgeons. And I mean, and still that book is still continuing to go. But I'm alive and I'm here. And so, you know, I'm appreciative of life. And that's why I'd like this life to be a good one. So, back to what I first started. We were created in God's image. And by golly, everybody, let's do that. Love you all. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Battery 100%. 100%. on the chat, up on the chat, up on the chat, look,